Welcome to the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. My name is Philip Boone, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
And I'm Caitlin Drake. I use female pronouns she, her, hers.
Before we begin, I'd like to state that the views represented in this podcast are those of the individuals in this conversation and not the official position of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. We are recording this podcast remotely from our individual workspaces during the COVID-19 pandemic as we practice physical distancing as a church community. With the Advent season just a few days away, and while the U.S. is experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases, churches, their leaders, and their members are facing tough decisions. How do we safely celebrate this season? With so many traditions and special memories, can we have Christmas if we have to make big changes? Today, to talk about how our church community is approaching Christmas and Advent, and to offer some ideas for your family, we are joined by Reverend David Wiggs, Senior Pastor of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church, and Reverend EvaMarie Campbell, Associate Minister over both our adult faith formation and our elementary education offerings. Welcome, everyone.
Okay, so David, Easter and Christmas, they're two of the most significant days on the calendar for most Christians and most churches. I know from my job perspective, there's always a big push and ramp up for both of those occasions. And obviously, any decision to approach those holidays differently is not made lightly. What are some things that are front of your mind as we make decisions about how to celebrate Christmas this year?
Right. So traditionally, as a large church, where we would average, 1,000 people on a Sunday morning in our building, and we would have worship in one room for an hour, and we would have a special Advent wreath candle lighting ceremony with hundreds of people packed into what we call our Bishop's Hall, but basically a small lobby area. All those things are dangerous these days with COVID-19. We know that it's a bad idea or a risky idea, dangerous idea to have hundreds of people or 1,000 people in a small space or an interior space. So we feel like that's not our best choice, because throughout this pandemic, what we have sort of used as our leading ideas is that we would pay attention, especially to our health experts and the recommendations they make. And of course, social distancing and not having large groups indoors are a couple of things that we have to be very aware of. We're also aware that over half of our congregation is in the high risk category. And so thinking about the most vulnerable among us, as the Gospels teach us to do, and to be sensitive to the needs of others or to love your neighbor, we realize it's not a good practice this season to have lots of people together. So we are making contingency plans of having a meaningful and spectacular Advent and Christmas season in spite of the pandemic. So we're planning, different kinds of activities, as well as doing some of our regular activities by different means. So just for an example, one of the new things we're planning is to decorate outside our North Park, which we've not done in the past. So we'll have Christmas lights in the trees and around the park. We have over 60 trees in that area. So it'll be a pretty spectacular, I think, gift to our church and to our community. We'll have a special lights on activity that first Sunday of Advent, which is the Sunday after Thanksgiving. That evening, as darkness descends, we will pop on the lights, and our theme for Advent is Christ be our light. So it'll be an exciting time. People can come and be outdoors, either get out of their cars or stay in their cars. We'll be asking everyone, of course, to wear a mask and socially distance. But I think it's a different way to celebrate the beginning of Advent, and yet it'll be an exciting way to do that. So that's sort of the tack we're taking. It's how can we have safe, significant, meaningful experiences during the Advent and Christmas season without putting people at risk.
Excellent. David, you mentioned the lights on in the Boston Avenue Park. Are there any other different events that are occurring this year? And Is there anything that's the same that's going to occur this year that you have not spoken on? Do you have any thoughts as a senior pastor about how we can think about these differences and changes?
Yes, so some of our traditional offerings, especially during Advent, are around musical events. We typically present the Christmas portion of Handel's Messiah live in our sanctuary with a full house in terms of a large choir and a large congregation. That not being a safe way to do that this year, we'll be broadcasting last year's Messiah on Channel 8. So as we draw closer to Christmas, you'll see our Lessons and Carols being made available, which is a musical program of music and biblical readings about the Christmas story and preparing for Christmas. You'll see the Messiah. Our Christmas Eve services, normally we have several services in the building on Christmas Eve. That's not a good idea, clearly. So we'll be recording a Christmas Eve service and also broadcasting that on Channel A on Christmas Eve. So those are some of the, traditional events presented in a different way. We also, though, are going to do some things that we've never done before in addition to the lights on. We're going to be doing a living nativity experience, which will be telling the Christmas story in 8 different scenes with live characters and live animals. It'll be a drive-through experience with a soundtrack to go with it. So we're very excited about that potential as a new tradition for families to experience the Christmas story in a different way. But I think one that will be very memorable for kids as well as adults to be a part of that.
EvaMarie, you were anticipating that Advent might look a little different than usual. And so you put some of your creative talents to work in designing and planning Advent in a Bag, which is a new offering that we will have this year. So first off, what is Advent in a Bag and what's in the bag?
The Advent in a Bag is an opportunity for families of all components, singles, married, families with children, family without children, all ages, to experience Advent in their home, because we know that, as David has referenced, it's not safe for us to gather, and we will be navigating these times from our homes. And so on November 29th, everyone's invited to come to the church through a drive-through to pick up your Advent in a bag. And in that bag, you will receive an Advent wreath, which has the 4 candles of Advent that represent the 4 weeks before Christmas as we're waiting and anticipating this special birth. There will be an all-church Advent calendar with daily thoughts and scriptures and activities throughout the season. There will be a card announcing the service of the bells. That's another wonderful tradition that we are going to be weaving together through videos from last year and current ones sent in by children. And if you've attended that service or seen it, you know that at the end, we all ring a string of bells to celebrate Christmas. And so everyone will have a string of those bells in their bag with the directions to ring them together. There will be a piece of purple fabric, purple felt, that we're hoping you can place your Advent wreath on. And it's purple because purple is the liturgical color for the season of Advent. And so we want to also provide some education about this wonderful season as we journey through it. Everyone will have the ingredients to make a birdseed pine cone ornament. And this ornament will be one that you are invited to bring back to the church one of our Sunday afternoons and place on a Christmas tree out in our North Park as a way to share our gratitude and our thanks and coming together and helping nature during this time of year, because we're hoping the birds and the squirrels and all will enjoy our pine cone bird feeders. You will also have in your bag the information to make a luminary. We're asking for our congregation to make luminaries that we can then light on Christmas Eve and place them around our neighborhood or on our driveway or our porch to show we are celebrating Christ as the light of our lives. There's also then a card that will tell you about our Christmas Eve service, and attached to it will be one of the candles that we traditionally use on Christmas Eve, and inviting everyone from wherever you are to light your candle and hold it joyously as we all sing Joy to the World. And we did take into account that there might be some families or persons who need to not have live candles. And so you can still participate because we have glow sticks for our Advent wreaths if you need to use those. And we have a glow stick for the Christmas Eve light as well. So everyone should be able to participate.
Was there anything that fueled your creative inspiration for Advent in a Bag? And do you have any advice to people who are searching for new ideas for ministry or just to celebrate at home?
Sure. Since the pandemic, a lot of the resources I've been receiving from other Christian educators and other areas has been about how to help families continue their faith formation in the home. And a book that was written by a young minister named Tracy Smith is called Faithful Families for Advent and Christmas. And she has laid out 100 ways to make the season sacred. And I was able to participate in the launch of her book, which was an exciting thing for me to get to be a part of. And then she has done a couple of webinars and trainings about how to use the book and how to help families enrich their faith formation. And so we were able to purchase a copy of the book for all of our families that in their Advent workshop in a bag, if it's okay if I go ahead and start talking about that, because the Advent workshop is another wonderful tradition that Boston Avenue has had for many, many years. And at that event, we all come together and have 10 to 12 different stations that we can rotate through and do specific activities to get us ready for Advent. And we're obviously not going to be able to have that event in that way this year. So we've put it in a bag, and each bag will contain a copy of her book. So families can have that to use throughout the rest of the year. And we are providing the supplies to actually do some of the activities in the book, referring us all back to the book. And so we're hoping that that can help families have a little taste of the Advent workshop in their home. One of the big traditions at the Advent workshop is the manger scene photo booth, where children and youth and families can dress up in our Christmas costumes and have their picture made. And I've been told that there are families who have kept those pictures from year after year after year after year. And I know my own children got their picture made when they were little, and then as youth they've actually went back and reenacted that photo. It meant so much to them. So we are going to have a time where families are invited to come and to the church, and we will have 2 photo booth opportunities for them to dress into the costumes and have their picture taken at the manger scene. It'll be socially distanced, masks required, and we will be disinfecting the robes and the costumes between each set. So we're working to make it as safe as possible, but we just had to continue that tradition in some way. It's so special.
And now turning to ask a question of my co-host, Philip, you're one of our youth ministers. And so talking with EvaMarie, it's clear that we have some really robust plans for families with young children. But for families with maybe older children or with youth, what are some Christmas opportunities available for them?
Alicia Urban, the senior high minister, and I have been working very hard on coming up with fun Advent events. So what we're going to be doing this Advent is we're going to continue with Advent Sunday School via Zoom. I'm doing the Redemption of Scrooge for my Advent Sunday School. Alicia's doing, the senior high is doing a Secret Santa amongst the senior high. They're doing virtual cookie decorating together over Zoom. We are, for mid-high, every year we've done a scavenger hunt at Utica Square. where they have Utica Square has a ton of lights out, and it's super pretty over there, and they have all kinds of decorations. So they go through the scavenger hunt and take a picture of what they need to find. And so we are going to do that again this year, except it is going to be a family scavenger hunt. So it'll be mid-high and senior high together. They will have the opportunity to do it, and they will go there as a family and look for things as a family unit. For mid-high, we're going to do gingerbread house making in the Boston Avenue Park on one Saturday. And the Living Nativity that Pastor David had talked about includes a couple of families with youth. That is a full family event. And one thing that's important to notice about the Living Nativity that has not been mentioned yet, the recording that's going to be read for each station is going to be able to be found on the podcast. So even if you're not able to come to the Living Nativity, you're still going to be able to hear the nativity story. And so it will still be a wonderful thing to be able to listen to, even if you're not able to come to the Living Nativity. So we have a lot of things that we're excited about. One other thing is that last year I did an event where we did a Christmas escape room. I am going to do a different Christmas escape room, except emailing it out to families that they can do at their house. Since probably during COVID, it's not a good idea to tell people go into a room and you can't come out until you finish. So rather than do that, I'm emailing the escape room out to families to let them do as a family this Advent season. So we're excited about everything that's going to happen, and hopefully it will be a very meaningful time for youth as well.
David, this season is exciting for us in many ways. We've got some wonderful new things planned, some creative things planned, but I know that it's also going to be hard for a lot of people. Changes in tradition are hard. Not being able to see loved ones is hard. And some folks are obviously going to be experiencing new grief and new loss in this season. So what are some ways that we can faithfully respond to others who are dealing with these hard things?
Right. Of course, a lot of us can do that with family members or friends or neighbors. And the key thing, I believe, is to be sensitive to those who might be experiencing grief and loss in this season. It might be whether it's the pandemic and COVID or not, it could still be the first Christmas somebody is living in a new place, or the first Christmas that they're living without a spouse or a relative that they lost to death, whether it was COVID or something else. So there's a variety of experiences, and sometimes the holidays bring out that grief in a deeper way and a more difficult experience for some, especially if it feels like everybody else is excited and happy and, everything's going great. And my life, I'm just feeling this grief or loss. So every year we have what we call the longest night service, which is designed especially for individuals or families who are coming up on the anniversary of the loss of a loved one or experiencing other kind of grief and loss. This year, it might be more people experiencing the loss of job or income. So we're opening that service. Typically, it's targeted just for those who have lost loved ones, but we're really broadening that this year. So we do it around the winter solstice or the actual longest night of the year. This year, that's Monday, December 21st. But we're going to do a walk-through communion. So you'll have to pre-register to make this work, but we'll have pastors in the sanctuary and worship music, and people can come into the building and come through the sanctuary, sit and pray if they would like, come to the communion railing and receive a prayer and receive communion or a blessing from one of the pastors, and exit on the other side of the sanctuary so we can maintain some social distance and safety. Of course, we'll be wearing masks in that experience, but it's a great way it's one of the ways we've come up with for people to be in the building and be in the sanctuary in a worship setting, but in a safer way rather than a crowd of hundreds sitting together. It'll be a 2-hour experience where people can flow through that special place of our sanctuary and experience hopefully some healing and some solace and some support from the staff, from the pastors, and be a part of that. But in addition to that, always being ready to listen to somebody in need or somebody hurting. That's often the most important thing, is somebody needs to be heard. And so being able to be sensitive to that during this season is really important. And we can do that even in a socially distant way. I mean, if we know someone's living alone, a phone call, a text, an email can really be a bright spot in somebody's day, an opportunity to talk with somebody else. And if we're ready to listen empathetically, then I think we get to be a part of the healing, and God can use us in that way. Of course, we can also reach out to people that we know are feeling loss or going through grief or feeling isolated and lonely. Just as an example, my family at Halloween, we were not keen on passing out candy to hundreds of children like we normally do. So we had our lights off on that night. But before that night came, we thought about people in our neighborhood that we knew. We prepared, my wife's very crafty. She prepared some cute little Halloween gifts. And so our family walked door to door before Halloween and left gifts on people's porches, just as a way to say, we know this is hard. We're thinking of you. We hope you have a good week and a good Halloween, even though it's not going to be the way it typically is. So I think that's a key, is to be thinking about how do we reach out? How do we love our neighbor? How do we care for others? Even during this season of pandemic, where we know we need to social distance and be careful.
What are ways that we can ground ourselves in faith during this season?
I think we can take a great cue from our Jewish siblings. A lot of their worship is designed to be done at home. And certainly all the things EvaMarie was talking about in terms of Advent in a bag are designed for families or individuals to be able to do at home and keep faith alive in the home, and not, segregate it just to when we come to church. So let's make it an integrated part of our lives. So especially with children or youth, doing hands-on activities, whether it's the crafts from Advent in a bag or something we come up, maybe some families have traditions of, making Christmas cookies or baking fruit bread to give to others. Thinking about others and ways we can do things together in the family, but also ways we can touch other lives with goodness and support and love. Help us learn the faith and remember the faith at whatever age we are, and enact that. Lots of families do things like if you have a nativity set, rather than just having it sitting on a table, moving the characters around, maybe reading the biblical stories about when the Magi come from the east, or, letting the kids put the animals in different place, or move the Magi from place to place, week to week, as they journey toward the manger scene, the nativity scene, using storybooks with children, picture books. All of those, are interactive ways to help children and the whole family really keep faith alive in the home. Lighting the candles or having some kind of ritual, before a family dinner every night to do the Advent calendar activity, or to read something together that reminds us of faith. All those, I think, are really great ways. You can sing Christmas carols as a family, all kinds of things that we do at church, but you can also do in the family with a little pre-thought and intentionality. So I think all those help keep faith alive, whether you're in a pandemic or not. Those are great things to do in the home.
EvaMarie, David mentioned some things that families can do together. But I know, especially with younger children, routine and structure can be really important, and knowing what to expect. Certainly in my experience in a past life as a teacher, But do you have any advice for talking with children about this season, helping prepare them for the ways that it might look different than last Christmas or last Advent?
Sure. I think it's important that we give our children factual information appropriate to their age level, and to answer any questions they might have as clearly and truthfully as possible. Again, paying attention to their age level development. And I know a concern for Thanksgiving and Christmas has been about not being able to gather with our relatives, and children might have a more of a hard time understanding that. And so making it clear that we're doing this for their safety, for our safety. But an idea is you can visit your family members through the photos that you have. Maybe this would be a good time to sit down with your family and pull out your photo albums. Or if you're a family who has photos of family hung on your walls, maybe you can take a sort of photo prayer walk in your own home and walk from photo to photo and acknowledge the person in the photo and pray for them and give thanks for their continued role in your life. So again, looking for ways within your own home that you can still share the experience with your children, certainly at an age appropriate level.
This has been mentioned a few times, but are there any ways of reimagining traditions or adding new traditions that either one of you are exploring in your family or household?
Well, our household is different this year too, in that we have a college student and she's been gone and she'll be home, and then our high schooler. So I don't have little children in my home anymore. I do still have children. And so being together is going to be another wonderful opportunity for us, but then also connecting with the rest of our family, of course, through Zoom, which is a wonderful way to be together if you can at least see each other and hear each other, and also do that with my mother through FaceTime and all. So those are definitely different traditions at our house.
We're struggling with, as so many families are, we usually have extended family with large numbers of people gathering that we're not going to do this year. But one of my nieces came up with the idea of doing a kind of a secret Santa gift exchange and utilize Amazon and technology. And so everyone's going to get a name. We're all going to buy gifts, send those, and then have a big Zoom, gift reveal or gift opening together. So it's a different way for families to get together or to exchange gifts in a kind of a safer, socially distant kind of way, but still a way for family to interact and think about others and give to others, and celebrate together come, Christmas time. So that's one of the things we're looking at for our larger extended family experience.
Mm-hmm. And I will add to that I have 2 younger kids. And one thing we're going to be doing differently that we've never done in the past is actually lighting our own Advent wreath based on Advent in a bag at home. And I've wanted to do that each year, but we have the wonderful Advent wreath lighting that's at the church, at all the churches I've been at. And it's a wonderful experience. And I love them being a part of that and being in the room when that takes place. So even though it's done virtually, it's since it's being done virtually, or they won't be able to be in the room, we're going to be doing it here so we can all experience it at home. So I'm excited about that particular tradition that we're going to do this year, that hopefully we do carry on so we can have longer discussions about what it means and so forth. So I'm excited about new opportunities. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. Our producer is Alicia Urban. Our theme music was composed and performed by Wyatt Smith. Boston Avenue United Methodist Church is a progressive historic church located in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. Please visit our social media platforms for more information on what's going on at Boston Avenue UMC. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you.